Welcome back to the show, everybody. Dana and I are here to talk about collecting
stuff. Yeah. Collecting things.
Thank you for finishing my sentence. You finished my sentences. You complete me, Dana. For those of you who get that.
You complete me. That line in that movie bugs the crap out of me, because it's like, but you should need another person to complete yourself. You should be complete. Just the psychologist, right? A lot of movies are lost on us because we're just analyzing.
I know. It's like eye roll. Like, get a life. No, just kidding. Yeah. I mean, there was a part of me who's like a hopeless romantic who was like, oh my God, this is like the night. That's the sweetest thing I've ever heard. Yeah. And then it's like me 3 seconds later. Wait a minute. Yeah. What the hell's that about? No, anyway.
But anyway, we're here to talk about collecting stuff as I'm looking around my office for stuff. Yeah. Actually, if I can move my camera a little bit, you can see my...
Yes, Dina and her cute stuffies.
Back there. So I think neurodivergent people are kind of known for collecting stuff, right? Yeah. And I had stuffed animals when I was a little kid. One of my, I remember when I was first researching autism, and it would talk about lining up toys. And I was like, well, I don't relate with that. And then I was like, oh, but every night I would put my stuffed animals to bed, and I'd have to make sure they were tucked in just the right way and no one was like on top of the other one, and make sure they were all happy. And I'm like, maybe that was like a version of lining things up. Yeah. Do you think? Maybe. And I couldn't get rid of old ones because I knew I was going to hurt their feelings. They were going to end up in the trash. That's a terrible thing to do. Yeah. So getting rid of things is just as hard as collecting things, I think, for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, collecting is built upon principles of psychology.
Yeah.
And it's almost like we don't give humans a chance when you've got limited runs, finishing collections, right? These are all built upon principles of psychological ways of thinking.
Yes.
They just those people that manufacture that stuff. Funko Pop knows how to do this. I think, that make the bobbleheady things.
Yeah.
They really, really know how to really, really drive collection.
I found out yesterday, I did not know this. I found this out from a client of mine, about Rolex watches. Oh. That you can't just go in somewhere and buy a Rolex. So apparently you go in and you tell them there's ones to kind of look at and try on, and then you talk to the jeweler, and then the jeweler lets Rolex know, and they will send various jewelers versions of different watches at various times. And then you get on this waiting list. So they'll call you when this watch that you want. If you're buying like from a jeweler, you can get secondhand ones, but then you have to worry about fakes. But as he was telling me this story, I was like, that is why they're so expensive, because I mean, they're probably very good watches, but they're creating that demand. And so like this limited edition kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's a psychological principle of creating demand. If I know something is one of 20 in the world, obviously it doesn't matter if it's a used, lip balm. I love this stuff, by the way, it's got a hilarious name.
What is it?
If I get it. It's called cat crap.
Dina, you would have lip balm that's called cat crap.
This is the best lip balm ever because it doesn't dry your lips out. So anyway, I could have one of these that like was used by Gandhi or something. And so like you've seen this, right? Where there's been things in Hollywood that went up for auction, like a pair of the ruby slippers sold for like $6 million or something. That's that idea of collecting. That's one piece of it, like the rarity. And I've seen, people collect things, they don't take it out of the box and that kind of stuff. That's a version of collecting. And then there's kind of like the tchotchke, just things that make you feel good. Like I have a bunch of rocks that I've collected and some other items in this smudge pot I have across the room that I won't pick up. But one thing that's in there is that little bug thing from Moon Knight. I found this little thing that's the
yeah.
little,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
I just love it. It just feels good
Yeah.
in my hand, and I love the Moon Knight series. So sometimes
Yeah.
we get stuff just because it feels good. We like it.
Yeah.
Mostly with stuffed animals, I fall prey to buying them because they're just so smooshy and I love them. So
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of us collect stuff, and we do this thing that we sort of morphize those things, and
Yeah.
kind of can project feelings into them and make them sentient, which can make us collect more things. I used to collect Department 56 houses with those little Christmas village
The
houses.
Christmas Village houses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
until I
Mhm.
had to move them all for the third time, and I was so disgusted that I had like 7 boxes of these bloody, and then I just started giving them away. I'm like, I can't do this. But I had to give them away. I had to make sure they had a home, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So there's so much that goes into collecting, and this can be a bone of contention too between couples, right? Spending too
Yep.
much money on these collecting things. They maybe take up too much room in the house. Where are you putting them? Where are they on
Uh-huh.
display?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
all kinds of things that can
Lego
be very.
Lego sets. Lego
Oh,
sets are something that I see a lot
yep,
of.
yep,
Where do we do with that? Again, like we talk a lot on the show about where I am on the spectrum,
hmm
the 3D map of neurodivergence. And some of it's just silly. But like I have multiple really nice lightsabers. I probably have
yeah,
3 of those.
yeah,
My old background, I'd like, which is a lot of artwork that I've collected over the years, which is
yeah.
just all science fiction, based on science
Science
fiction
fiction, yeah, yeah, exactly.
things. But you know, um, I love how you're like, they mean something. But it's kind of like, what I feel? It's like they really take advantage of the need to close the loop. This is something that I
Yeah,
see with
yeah,
my ND folks.
yeah.
It's like when the loop is
I love that,
open,
by the way. I used that with a client yesterday. I
right?
said, "Oh, a
They
friend of
got to
mine
close the
said
loop.
close the loop." Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like and so I think when you start a collection, you got to close the
Mhm.
loop. This is why those gashapons, which are the Japanese capsule toys,
Yeah,
you go
yeah.
and you get that's random. So blind packs would be something similar to this
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
idea,
yeah,
right? Where
yeah,
you don't know what's inside, you buy the box, now you have a duplicate. I mean,
yep,
we
yep.
so there's these fun things. From the 90s, my husband and I collected these Star Wars figures that
Yeah.
were sold at Walmart.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
this is in the 90s, and we would
Yeah.
go almost daily.
I can
I
picture the
can't tell you.
packaging even. I know
Oh,
what they would look like. Yeah,
oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're green, like depending on like what
yeah,
series it was, and we still
yeah.
have 3 plastic bins of these
Wow, yeah,
that are not opened.
yeah, yeah.
And
Same
finally, we
number.
got online. I was like, these have got to be worth so much money.
Yeah.
Spoiler
Were
alert,
they?
they're not. They're not. So I
Because
said,
millions of other people have done the same thing.
okay. So I was like, well, there goes my hopes and dreams for a new house. No, just kidding.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
that Star Wars
Oh,
was going to do
God.
that. But so I said, I'm opening up a pack of Ewoks
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm making a terrarium. And for the
Oh,
longest time, I had a Ewok terrarium in my office.
that's awesome. See, that's what I
I
mean by,
guess,
like, these
yeah.
things that just make you feel good,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
just like so
Yeah,
fun. And people be like, what is this? And I was like, please don't remove the lid. They might get out.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I put a felt lid on the top so they could breathe,
I can
right? Because I
breathe.
wouldn't,
It's sort of like me tucking in my stuffies, right? It's
right.
good.
Or
I
if I
love
had a
it.
true lid, I would have like poked holes in it because I think that's
Yeah,
funny. I think
that's
like
right.
I'm a big attention to detail kind of gal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's all that
Oh,
kind of
I
fun
love
stuff
that.
of collecting, and
I
I
had this
bet you,
enormous
yeah.
teddy bear that was, like, bigger, almost bigger than me, but you could lean into. He's awesome, right? And I'd
Yeah.
moved him cross country and several other moves. And my landlady at the time, when she first saw it, she opened his mouth and she's like, "He doesn't have a tongue. How is he supposed to speak?" So, of course, I went and
Oh,
got red felt and
yeah.
sewed a red tongue in. So he had his
Yeah.
own tongue that I put in there. So there's a lot of meaning behind that. And I finally decided after another move that I had grown beyond that.
Yeah.
And I took him to Goodwill to donate him. And as I was driving away in my rearview mirror, this could have been like a movie of the week, right? I just see him, Jubo is the name. I see him sitting on this pile of stuff to Goodwill, and I just burst out crying.
Oh
It was
no,
like
it's
a
like
scene from,
Toy
and then it was
Story.
like Toy Story. But I came home, I
Oh,
told my wife, and she was so sweet about soothing me. She's like, you have to understand, you take those to Goodwill because they're going to resell it. You're going to help them out because he was in great shape. They're be able to put a good price tag on him. They do all kinds of learning for disabled people. So that's a good thing.
yep.
I'm like, okay.
Yep.
And she's like, some little kid who would never be able to get, because it was like $100 when I bought it new. She's like, some little kid who would never be able to afford that is going to be able to have that bear. And I was like, but I needed to know that narrative. It's sort of like in Toy Story when he does donate finally to his younger
He
cousin or
goes to
something.
college, or he goes to college, right? Or
But
something like
he
that. And
gives
like,
all the
yeah,
toys.
I
They've been living
know.
in an attic, but he gives all the toys to his little niece or something,
To
and they're
Bonnie. I
playing.
think
And
Bonnie is
I
her name.
was
Yeah.
a blubbering mess at the end of
Oh
that
yeah.
movie.
Oh
Not
yeah.
because because it was like, oh, thank God the toys are okay. So there really is, I think and you don't have to be neurodivergent to feel this way necessarily, but I think a lot of more neurodivergents than not will put felt over the terrarium so that Ewoks can breathe and that kind of stuff, right?
It's so like,
They're
yeah,
Yeah, Jung
so
talked about
ridiculous.
archetypes, and I think there's a reason why science fiction characters become larger than life
Mm.
and those kinds of things.
Oh,
We need those sort of symbols, and they can be just really personal, right? That someone else looks at and they're like plastic Ewoks in a terrarium, and
hilarious.
for me, I'm like, that's awesome, right? And so it really depends on the person.
Yeah.
I do hear a lot of people talk about uh, feeling like they have so many of them, they're caving in on them. And there's a very rare, they hardly ever rebroadcasted episode of Big Bang. I don't know if you know this one,
Mm.
where Amy and Sheldon finally opens up to Amy and takes her to the storage unit he has. And you go in the storage unit, and it's a big storage unit, and there's things perfectly organized, but there's way more stuff than they even have in their apartment. And he's got a golf ball. One of the things he has is this golf ball, and I can't even remember what the symbolism is of the golf ball. But she's like, oh, I'm so glad you opened up to me and told me you had all this stuff. And I thought, that's so genius of him. Keep it, put it in storage, put it somewhere where it's not caving in on you, as my wife says when we get too much clutter.
Yeah.
But Amy, the neuropsychologist, is like, well, let's just have you get rid of one thing. And so he takes the golf ball and he throws it in the garbage can. And she's like, don't you feel better? And he's like, yeah. And then he runs back when she doesn't see, grabs the golf ball, and you see him just kind of throw it under the door of the storage bin so it's still in there.
Yeah.
And I love that episode because it's like she's trying to
Yeah.
get him to let go of stuff when you really don't have to.
Yeah.
And for him, it was so adaptive to have this secret place that was just his. He knew where everything was. It was so
Yeah.
pleasing to him that he had it so organized. And we talk on the show a lot about how can you wrap your world in normalizing who you are. And that would
Yeah.
be a version of that. So if all that stuff in your house is driving your family members crazy, do something like that, assuming you have the money to pay for a storage unit or bins in the garage, some of those kinds of things. But organize them, put labels on them, know where all of them are, arrange them in a bin so nobody's can't breathe. I mean, as silly as that sounds,
Yeah.
when I talk about that with clients, they're looking at me like, I can't believe a psychologist is telling me it's okay to put my stuff in a bin in a way that I know that they'll be comfortable. And this is a professional licensed psychologist telling me this.
Yeah.
Because I get it, right? It's okay to
Yeah.
do that. So, yeah.
Well, and what I told my client is you're not Delulu if you know you're Delulu. Right? That's the new right. If you know you're Delulu, you're not Delulu. The problem is when you don't know you're delusional.
Yeah.
Like
Right,
I mean, for us, right? It's just, and that's just a funny way,
I love that. You're
and
aware
this is
it's all
something,
good. Yeah.
right? That's just something that I've said, and my
Yeah.
client
And
even said to me,
I had
yeah,
a client of mine who she says, if something is out of sight, it ceased to exist in my brain. So that's created a
yeah,
lot of anxiety for her about what if I do
yes,
store these things? And I said, I have 2 words. And she says, what? I said, label maker. And she just went, I have an excuse now to actually buy a label maker. And I was like, put as
yeah,
many labels on that box as you need to, so you can just read the labels
yes,
and know what's in there.
and
And
know
then
what's in
it's out of
there.
sight, out of mind, but you don't have to worry about it being lost forever.
Yep.
right? So this is
Yep.
like
It's a
doing therapy
list.
in a way, that's
Yeah.
understanding the neurodivergence and figuring out how to deal with that issue in neurodivergence is so important.
Let's talk about, Dana, because I'm sure that there are some people out there that are like, well, what's the difference between that and hoarding?
Hoarding is when it interrupts your life so much that you can't function. So you're not leaving the house, or it's creating dangerous conditions in your house. Like
Yeah.
it's dirty, the sanitation's a problem. People literally can't get into your house because there's nowhere to walk. And hoarding for most folks actually causes, they don't want to be that way, but they can't do anything about it.
That's
And
it.
there's a slight edge to it. I mean, you could collect enough stuff that they feel like they can't do enough about it. But if someone comes in and helps you organize, you might be like, I feel so much better. When you do that with a true hoarder, they are anxious about you organizing and throwing things away, because it's the collecting and keeping that is sort of pathologically important. And so
It's
when folks get help with it, it frees them, but they can't do it on their own.
Don't you feel like we talk a lot about the difference between stemming and compulsions?
Yeah, it's that fine edge, but
It's that
they do sort of have an
fine,
overlap. Yeah.
it's
Yep.
that fine kind of edge.
Yeah.
And, and
It's a
again,
want
for
to
us,
rather than a have to,
I
right?
want to versus I
Yeah.
have to. And
Yeah.
those two things are very, very different. And even though you might have a hard time, like, okay, so here I am, I've got, three plastic bins of Star Wars character figurines from the 90s.
Mhm. Mhm.
We will probably, I mean, at this point in time, I can't see us ever getting, the bin, when my husband and I clean out the garage, those bins
Mhm.
go right off to the side. Like, we both have a
Yeah,
very, very clear understanding, nobody touching those bins,
that's
right?
right.
And it was
Exactly.
so, when we did a yard sale, we brought those bins inside. We were like,
Oh, you don't want someone accidentally walking off with those, right?
you're
Yeah,
not, no one touching those bins,
right.
which was just so funny because I don't know what we're going to do,
Yeah,
even though I've got some craft ideas about what I might do and open up those packages. But,
yeah, yeah.
um, I'll,
But it's important. They're
I'll,
important to you, and you get
yeah,
something from them. Yeah, that's the
yeah,
difference. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to repurpose them. Dana, I saw this
yeah.
really cool thing in an art museum, an art studio. That's
Mm,
a better description. And they had these, these Star Wars figurines, like preserved butterflies, like
yeah. Oh, pit
in
like
the
in a
shadow
little cave.
boxes.
Oh, yeah. I
And
love it.
they had them up with the pins and like
Yeah.
distressed labels. I was like, I need to do that with my figurines.
You can make a huge one, but keep them in the packaging. It could be an entire wall in the package. So you could do two things at once. You could preserve the package and do the art. See, the two neurodivergents together colluding is probably not a good idea. I love it. Or hang
Okay.
on to them another 30 years to when they will be worth something, because they'll be more
Dana,
rare by
I
then.
feel like I'm like, I can't hold my breath on that. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
there you go.
You know
There you
what?
go.
If you're listening to this and and I don't know something about those Star Wars figures from the 90s, I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
you to put it in the comments what I should know. But maybe the other thing too is, what do you collect?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know one neurodivergent person who doesn't collect something.
That's right. Yep.
Because
Mine volume wise would be tools, because I like doing stuff to the house, and I have tools,
yeah,
and I do
you
have
do love
tools that I
that.
bought that I still haven't used, but I might someday. And that's the collection part.
And that is not hoarding. Okay,
No.
people? Okay.
I'll show you how well organized they are. Yeah, they're down in my basement in a nice giant cabinet, and I know exactly where everything is. It's awesome.
With labels.
And I don't even need to label them because they're so important to me. I know exactly which
You know
drawer
exactly where they
everything is
are.
in. Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, let us know what you collect, because I
Yeah,
would love. I
please.
mean,
We'd love to
I've heard
know.
some of the greatest collection things. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
The imagination cannot even fathom what people collect. Anyway,
Really? Oh, I would love to know. Please comment. I would love to
please
know.
comment.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, be good to you and get that. Maybe this is your universal sign to get that special edition Funko Pop that you've been meaning to get, but you've
That's
just
right.
said No,
I
no.
probably shouldn't, yeah, but I want to. I
Yeah.
really want to. Yeah.
But maybe Dana and Gwen said yes. I don't know.
You can blame it on us.
It could have been
It's all
us.
good. Yeah.
Deniability. Okay, bye everyone.
Bye, everybody.